Yeah, so Ray Anderson, ASU's president,
Yep.
went on Arizona Sports in Phoenix.
Yep.
And said that, they're managing the situation by being patient and letting the process play out with our new commissioner. It's been challenging and it's been frustrating. I don't think anybody can deny that. And so we've had to be patient because, very frankly, we're not in control. We certainly believe in the value of this market and certainly the value ASU as an institution brings to the Pac-12 conference. And then he also said, quote, assurances is a very strong word. Guarantees, assurances, can you promise? I can't speculate. So, there's no guarantees or assurances that a deal is getting done. I mean, you're basically in a place with these comments where Ray Anderson
said the deal is good enough.
Well, no, I'm saying that
Dennis Dodd is quoting Arizona State AD Ray Anderson. Quote, the new Pac-12 deal may not be the projections originally contemplated, but will be solid enough financially to keep this conference together. So this is starting to sound like the disappointment is turning into reality for the Pac-12. That's what this is starting to sound like. This is starting to sound like, to me, that Ray Anderson, who, by the way, at Arizona State, we've told you they are one of the most vocal members of this conference right now. It's starting to sound like Ray Anderson is getting a dose of reality.
Here's the full quote that Dennis Dodd was referencing there. So, quote, we've just been forced, like everyone else, unfortunately, to let this thing play out because we're not directly in the driver's seat. That being said, we have confidence our commissioners and our presidents and chancellors are going to get to a place where a media rights deal and a grant of rights is done. It may not be the projections originally contemplated, but will be a solid enough financial situation to keep this conference together, and then we will work really hard to move forward positively. That's the full quote. So,
wow.
So that, to me, I agree with you. Sounds like, hey, something is getting done. And my instincts tell me, based on the amount of disappointment in this statement, and again, this is Ray Anderson, ASU's president, saying this. Based on the amount of disappointment in this statement right here, I hear this, I read this, I see this, and this to me points to one of two things are going to happen with this rights deal. Number one, it's going to just be a straight up rights deal, just like everybody else, but it's going to be for very little money. Enough money to keep them afloat, but very little money. So, we've heard 30 million. We've heard 35 million. I'm saying that this is mid-20s, sub 30. That's what this says to me right here. And I only say that because if it was 30, they'd be selling it like they got something done based on how the media's covered this thing. And that's not what's happening here. So that's just me speculating on what he said, but that's kind of what I think of that. Number two, I think the point you've been making this whole time about how this could be a multi-place media rights deal. So, tier 1 goes here, tier 2 goes there, tier 3 goes over here, with ESPN probably being tier 3 because they only want a game or two a week. That's also feels like that could be a real possibility here, again, based on the level of disappointment.
And again, this is Ray Anderson, the vice president of athletics and the athletic director at Arizona State University, telling Arizona Sports 98.7, quote, the new media deal may not be the projections originally contemplated, but will be a solid enough financial situation to keep the conference together. Oof. Well, I mean, let's just recap what we've been telling you, because I think this is validation of that.
Right.
The numbers we've known for 6 weeks, $25 million per year per school, $250 million a year for 7 years, split between two parties who originally were Amazon and ESPN. But as we've told you, Amazon has wavered slightly and has now gotten to a point where Amazon is telling the Pac-12, hey, we're interested in a game of the week, a Wednesday or a Friday night deal. I mean, this seems to be exactly what that is.
Yeah.
And you know the thing that really worries me? This is not a ringing endorsement. This is not, and this is my biggest fear for the Pac-12. This is, okay, well, yeah, cool, we're going to go explore other options. Because when you hear financially, enough to keep the conference together, that's not exactly saying, well, everybody's happy and we're going to stay together because we know what's best for us.
You notice how he doesn't mention George Kliavkoff by name? Anyone noticing that? Like, I know it's a small tidbit, right? But you look at the whole interview here, the whole mention of it. And you can find the whole interview, ArizonaSports.com. They have it posted. They do a great job with that. You can find the whole thing. But in the comments here, the biggest comment, talking about how, they have confidence they're going to stay together and stuff. He's referencing commissioners and presidents and chancellors. He's not saying, hey, George Kliavkoff got a deal done that is, maybe it falls short of original projections. Quote, it may not be the original projections, contemplated, but it gets it done. He's not mentioning George at all. So that's why I say I just think this is really curious verbiage. Like, I'm not trying to be harsh on Ray Anderson at all, but I just think it's interesting. Like, if this was like, even if there was any semblance of a good media deal happening here, financially speaking, they would have been like, yeah, George Kliavkoff, love our commissioner. He did a great job here. This deal is, while it may not be 50 a year, it's going to carry us into the future, and we're going to figure this thing out. That's not what was said here at all, dude.
This is not positive. And again, it's what we've talked about as our biggest concern in this situation, and that is that you have a deal where you're not at all certain that the Pac-12 will stay together here. And I think, what I find to be so interesting is your wording of curious, because I think it is very curious language for Ray Anderson, the vice president of athletics at Arizona State, to say good enough to keep the conference together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see the quote right there on the screen. That is not a ringing endorsement of George Kliavkoff, number one. And we have heard that more than one time that George Kliavkoff's job is in jeopardy. Two, this tells me the Pac-12 is going to be struggling for dollars.
Yeah.
Three, this tells me it's going to be quite difficult for the Pac-12 to expand on a significant level. And four, I think this tells you that the Big 12 going to market early absolutely crippled the Pac-10 and likely saved the Big 12's bacon.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to directly credit Brett Yormark for that, because all of the Pac-12 homers in the media and, the fanatics and the stick your nose up their orifice people that cover the Pac-12 absolutely crushed the Big 12 for going to market early. And I think it was a stroke of genius. And now you're looking at the Pac-12 in a position, and Jake, I think they're compromised. This quote, in my opinion, this quote is absolutely not good in any way, shape, or form. If you are the Pac-12, I think this is a shocking statement. Yeah,
I just once again go back to, the Pac-12 is a conference that we know doesn't talk a lot, right? The commissioner talks a lot, but they as a conference, I don't feel like talk a whole lot. Like presidents and stuff. And I look
in the Pac-12?
Yeah, in the Pac-12. You don't really hear the presidents talk a lot.
What I can tell you about that is I've been told directly that they communicate individually on a regular basis. They don't meet in group regularly. But president to president, AD to AD, they talk on a regular basis.
Let me be more specific. When I say talk a lot, I mean in the media. You don't hear presidents like coming out publicly.
That is very true.
X, Y, and Z. We've been told they communicate all the time. Yeah, but I mean, like, you're not. It's not like we're living in a world where you've got Carol Faust from USC saying this, and then the president of Washington. Like, you don't have all these presidents publicly in the media speaking a whole lot. So when Ray Anderson at ASU comes out and says what he says, and it's not exactly a real ringing endorsement, that just it just wouldn't surprise me if this media deal was like a half-ass media deal to buy some time, because that's what you need right now. You need more time. You need, time to figure out, what exactly you're going to do. You're basically looking for your lifeboat right now so you can get to the boat that's going to take you across the Pacific. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you're trying to do here. And so, hey, if the quote reads, it's,
may not be the projection originally contemplated, but will be solid enough financially to keep the conference together.
Okay, so my job isn't going to pay me a whole lot of money, but it'll be good enough to pay the mortgage this month. But we're going to have to figure it out for next month. That's what this is.
Well, I mean, the comparison is you're living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
When everybody else is living high on the hog.
Yes, dude.
You're on the pig's feet. Everybody else is high on the hog.
And I wonder, what does this do to the portal? What does this do to recruits and player movement? That's what I'd be looking at right now if I were you sitting at home. Go look at the transfer portal. Go see what players are moving in the PAC, because if you're seeing a bunch of dudes moving, that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, I don't know what you do with this, man. Like, I really don't. Let's get some of your comments in here. Jay Washington says this president has more faith in other presidents than the commissioner. This is not looking good. I don't disagree with that. Larry Pilgrim says, agreed. Pac-12 pissed at George for sure. D-Rock Irish says survival mode, triage. Yep, totally agree. The copium flows freely in the Pac-10 land. Tanner says, I understand why you didn't mention Kliavkoff. Georgie boy has become radioactive in the eyes of the public. He has. That's exactly right. I agree with that again. Ruff's official says, Pac-12 rumors again every day. This is no rumor. This is a direct quote from the VP of Athletics and Athletic Director Ray Anderson.
Yeah.
So Gary says, I think the bar is set so low that any deal the Pac-12 offers is going to seem like a done deal on arrival.
I guess.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that's very, very interesting. D-Rock says they're holding on by a thread. Tanner T says 7/1/2024 is when the TV rights deal with Fox and ESPN expires. Why so much urgency in the deal getting done within the next few months? Honest question. Because you have to secure your future. It's why when you look at college football and college athletic realignment, look at Texas and Oklahoma trying to get to the SEC as soon as possible, which frees up the Big 12 to make their moves. Like, you don't want to have a new deal like the next day. Well, my deal expires tomorrow. It's fine. We'll have dinner tonight. Well, it doesn't work that way. These are complex deals. This deal in the Pac-12, I hope people understand how this deal is going to be executed. As I understand it, George Kliavkoff is going to negotiate a deal at the behest of the Executive Council of the Pac-12, which essentially is President Kosse from Washington telling him, hey, here's what we're willing to accept. He's going to go out. He's going to get the best deal he can. He's going to come back to that Executive Council, which is, I think, 3 or 4 presidents in the Pac-12. Those 3 or 4 presidents are going to take it to their other 7 or 8 presidents, and they're going to say, here's our deal. Do you approve it or not? And my guess is George Kliavkoff's biggest issue is going to be getting it out of executive committee.
Yeah.
I think that President Kosse at Washington is the most powerful voice in the conference, from what I've been told. And I think Oregon, I think Ray Anderson, it's no accident that Ray Anderson's talking about this.
I was going to say, it's we've talked a lot about the power in the Pac-12, who holds it, who's the one with all the water in the Pac-12 right now. And we've been saying it's Oregon, Washington, and Arizona State. Those 3 are really the ones that are sort of in control. And it makes sense. And it's disappointing that Utah's not in that group once again.
Yep. Talking about breaking news out of the Pac-12, Arizona State VP of Athletics, Ray Anderson, quoted today as saying, quote, the new media deal may not be the projections originally contemplated, $50 million per school per year, but will be solid enough financial situation to keep the conference together. End quote. Uh-oh. Ray Anderson, Arizona State Athletic Director.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And listen, I get it. And I understand. If you're a Pac-12 fan, this is really troubling. This is really, really troubling.
And I think, to that question about why do the deal now when you have 2 years or whatever before it expires, you also have to consider the landscape too. It's not just about you and your deal. I mean, you look at the other deals that are getting done, and if everyone else has a deal that's, 5 years out and they've got a ton of reliability, that's going to help in recruiting. That's going to help in, a variety of different areas. Yeah. You can't be in a place where you're the only conference that's struggling to get a deal, man. That doesn't work.
This is scary times for the Pac-12. This is scary times because if it's good enough, I do think you're going to have trouble getting it ratified.
They let you down.
I think the 10 presidents in the Pac-12 are going to really struggle to get this ratified.
Yeah.
And good enough, is that $30 million? Or is it $25 million?
I think it's in the 20s, dude. Because and the only reason I say that, again, this is speculation. I don't have anything to go on with it. But just going off the statement, if it was 30, wouldn't you be saying, like, wouldn't you, like, at least be like, yeah, we've got a solid TV deal here. Like, we can work off of this. This can help us move forward. This is George Kliavkoff did a good job here. We got 30 a year. Because remember, the Big 12's at 31 a year, isn't it? Per school, I think, is the number 31 a year. So if you were to get 30 in the PAC, that's totally respectable. That's totally good. That's fine. But when I see this saying, hey, this is not going to reach the projections originally contemplated, right? This isn't going to meet the goal that we were kind of told that we were going after, but it's solid enough to get by. So I can't fill my gas tank up all the way, but we'll be able to go to the store. You know what I mean? Like, that's what that says. And that's why I'm like, dude, like, yeah, this isn't 30. This is 25. That's what it feels like to me. This is in the 20s somewhere. Because if it was in the 30s, you wouldn't be this disappointed.
Well, and I could tell you, and the reason I keep picking my phone up is my phone's rung like 4 times. A pretty good TV source tells me it is $25 million a year. They have not cracked the $25 million for 7-year threshold per school. Why would you go 7 years on that?
You wouldn't. And that's what I'm saying. When you talk about having trouble getting it ratified, that's the other side of this. It's not just the money per year, it's how many years. So to me, you're the only 2 questions that remain here, because that's a pretty damn good source. I can tell you that right now. So 25 a year. What is the distribution actually look like? Is that 1 outlet? Is that 3 outlets? What are we talking about? And if you cannot get it ratified through the 10, presidents, chancellors, whatever, you can't get it ratified through the group. What is it going to take? Because I'm telling you right now, we talked about this for the last couple of days. Oregon and Washington are not doing a deal for 7 years at $25 million a year.
Not a chance in the world.
And by the way, we haven't even talked about San Diego State and SMU now that this has come out. Because if it's $25 million a year and the PAC wants to add San Diego State and SMU, there's no way in hell.
I don't see how you do that.
Dude, Oregon and Washington are not allowing those 2 to jump in the conference at full freight. That ain't happening.
Nope. If you're sitting here watching this show right now, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. You are listening to The Monty Show, presented by our good friends at Papa Murphy's Pizza. This hour, anyway, we have breaking news for you. Presented by Papa Murphy's Pizza. Make sure you use the promo code Monty25 to get 25% off your purchase of $25 or more at Papa Murphy's Pizza. We're talking about Ray Anderson, the athletic director, and his correct title, I want to make sure I get this right. Ray Anderson is the vice president of athletics and the athletic director at Arizona State. He was in a radio interview in Phoenix, Arizona on Arizona Sports, and was asked about the media rights deal and said, quote, "It may not be the projections originally contemplated, but will be a solid enough financial situation to keep this conference together."
Mm-hmm.
End quote. And that is a big flipping deal, man, because this is one of those things where it is... I don't know what financial enough means.
Mm-hmm.
Solid enough financial deal. I don't know what that means. I mean, $25 million, it's got to be north of $25 million. Sweet Beans TV says you're drunk if you think it's $25 million. Okay, so is it more or less?
Yeah.
I can't see it being $35, $40 million. Because if you're Ray Anderson, aren't you jumping up and down at $30 million? To be level with the Big 12, aren't you jumping up and down at that?
I would think.
Would you just, if you're a Pac-12 athletic director, would you be describing your new TV deal as solid enough to keep the conference together if it were $30 million? I would think you would be more enthusiastic than that.
You would think.
Wouldn't you? I mean, I would think. I could be wrong. Mike P says George Kliavkoff couldn't sell ice water in hell. Good Lord.
That's a little rough, bro.
Okay. Cyclone Steve, I wouldn't be surprised if the Big 12 offered no grant of rights until 2031 to UW and U Oregon. Give them 6 years to get a Big 10 invite. Then the window closes with a new TV deal in 2031. You know, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. Because I was also told the other day that grant of rights may be going away. It might be a thing of the past, which, by the way, to your credit, you've said in the past, why do a grant of rights? Why do a grant of rights? Why not just own it? Are you serious? It is snowing again. I give up.
Bro. Wow.
It is an absolute downpour of snow in West Valley, Utah. Anyway, the point is that grant of rights might be going away. And that TV executives can see a situation where conferences essentially have the right to sell their teams who are in that conference, but those teams have the right to do new media deals on their own. Now, I don't know that ESPN is going to be real happy about that, but I think what you're seeing now is there is a group of schools, maybe University of Oregon and Washington are this group.
Mm-hmm.
There are groupings of schools that recognize they have no value and no leverage, and that their best value and their best leverage, BYU is an independent, is to go it on their own.
Yeah.
To find a TV dance partner and then to go leverage their assets and make money on their own.
Well, because if you think about it, that's how the rest of sports is done, right? You look at Major League Baseball, NHL,
Yeah.
NBA, like that's how all these other, like that's how pro sports does it, you know? So it's like, you know, for better, for worse, right? Like some teams have better TV deals, other teams have crap deals. So I just look at this and I say that the whole system is archaic. The very idea that you're paying someone to be a middleman with a TV company to represent a group in a conference for a TV deal, that just seems silly to me. I don't know why you would set it up that way, because the very notion that Oregon State should have the same amount of say in a TV deal that Oregon does or
That's what I'm
Washington
saying.
does is asinine. That doesn't make any sense, man.
I think everybody just assumes that there's going to be these super conferences. I wouldn't assume that. I would not assume that. I would assume that at some point these schools are going to recognize their best bit of business is done on their own. And I think if we learned anything from BYU's independence, we learned that it can be done on your own. Now, I'm not saying to be independent, but I'll go back to what we talked about on this program yesterday. Maybe the Pac-12 is better off setting sail on their own and saying, hey, you know what, Amazon Prime, let's be partners in ad sales. And let's be partners in distribution.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll pay you X amount of money, or you'll pay come to a financial agreement that works for everybody. Put your games on Amazon Prime Sports and go make a bunch of money doing it.
And do you see how many more options are available if you go at it that way versus the way you're trying to go at it? That's where I question George Kliavkoff.
Yeah, I don't know. Mark Hales puts a more lengthier quote. We've just been forced, like everyone else, unfortunately, to let this thing play out because we're not directly in the driver's seat. That being said, we have confidence our commissioner and our presidents and chancellors are going to get to a place where a media rights deal and a grant of rights is done It may not be the projections originally contemplated, but will be solid enough financial situation to keep the conference together. And then we will really work hard to move forward positively. So again, you're saying it's going to be a negative deal.
Yeah. That's pretty much, I mean,
that only reinforces that. Like, I think this is a significant issue for the Pac-12.
I think this is a get me over. That's what it is. It is a Band-Aid on a open artery, bro. It is a, hey, we got a media rights deal done for the next 5 years. I would guess it's 5 years. I doubt it's 7 years. Maybe it's 3 years. I could kind of see 3 years being the case, especially with how, alienated Washington and Oregon have become. And frankly, I might throw ASU into that pile too, because Ray Anderson didn't exactly sound, thrilled with his statement. So, let's say it's all three of those schools. That's what I'm saying, dude. Like this, the more we've talked about it, right? Because we dig into this thing every single day. We talk about different angles, different ways you go about things. Like every single day we dig into this. And the more I think about it, the more we dig into it, the more I think that the whole go independent as far as creating a TV deal is concerned is smart. I'm, again, not saying go independent from a conference standpoint, but allow these schools to go out and make the Oregon TV network. Allow them to go out and make Sun Devil Network.
Well, but again, we're going back in time because this is what happened in the Longhorn Network. This is what happened to...
But the difference was then, that's a great point. The difference was then it wasn't accepted, right? So you didn't have a thing like, and that's part of the challenge in this. You're going to need a group of schools to go out to market and say, hey, we're going at this a different way. We're not doing what, like, we've been put in a bad position here. We need to figure it out. We want to have our games on your network. Let's get it done.
Yeah, I think this is a huge, huge deal. If you're a supporter of the Pac-12, this is a very interesting statement from Ray Anderson, the athletic director at Arizona State. It's a big deal. Nathan Tracy, I want to get back to your comment. Interested to hear what the biggest differences are between 31.67 compared to hypothetical 25 million. I think it's a massive difference.
Yeah.
I think the biggest difference is the money's coming from ESPN and Fox in the Big 12. I think that it is universal distribution. I think it is recruiting. I think it is branding. I think it is revenue generation. I think it's revenue streams. I think it is far easier to sell grandma and mom and dad and brother that you can pick up your phone and watch their son, brother, daughter play basketball or football on their phone. I mean, like, it's not the money. And I know that you guys get pissed when I say this. It's not the money. It is the opportunity to make more money. It is the opportunity to win big football games. If your games are on Apple TV, for instance, if the majority or even a significant amount of your biggest contests are on Apple TV, you're not going to recruit well.
Obviously not.
You're not going to recruit well. Can you imagine Oregon football games only being available on Apple TV? Can you imagine Utah football? How many people in Utah have Apple TV? Can you imagine Utah Utes versus USC being on Apple TV?
Because it's garbage.
The assimilation is the problem here. And I think when you look at where the Pac-12 is, it's not that it's a $7 million difference or whatever that might be. That's not the issue. The issue is that your exposure level, your ability to drive new revenue. Again, Southern California Toyota dealers are not paying for Apple TV.
Yeah.
How much money are you not going to make by being on Apple TV testing the waters? Ask MLS. MLS, what's a bigger sport in this country, college football or MLS soccer? Come on, man. You can't have a deal on par with MLS soccer, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
That's what the biggest difference is.
Yeah.
It's not your nearly $7 million deal. There's so much more to it than $7 million. You know, like, it is, the hard part is getting the average fan to say, okay, and let's look at Apple TV. let's look at Apple TV as an example. Apple TV is not hard to get. Apple TV is not hard to find. But how many people know what Apple TV is even? Just on a
surface level.
How many people are like, oh, Apple TV, sure, do people know that, do you guys know that Apple TV is baked into all the iPhones? How many people know that? Apple TV's on your iPhone.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
You can get it on your iPhone. I don't know, like a dude who only uses his iPhone doesn't know that.
I wasn't aware that Apple
is
TV
unaware of that.
I wasn't aware of that.
How many people are aware that Apple TV is even a thing? Because I can tell you, I have never used Apple TV, not one time.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Just that level. Look at Amazon Prime Sports. Do you guys think Amazon Prime Sports is new?
Feels new.
Do you guys understand that? And I ask this every day. Do you guys understand that Amazon Prime Sports has Amazon Prime Sports Talk? Every day on Amazon Prime Sports, they do 5-6 live sports talk shows.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I had no idea. No idea. It's free on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
You just thumb over to the sports tab on your Amazon Prime Video. It's all right there.
Yeah.
I had no idea that even existed.
Yeah.
No idea.
And why is that? Because it's not marketed.
But you look at MLS. I can tell you, the people at ESPN are not worried a single moment that MLS will no longer be on ESPN. They're not, because it didn't draw.
Yeah.
So MLS isn't the comparison. The comparison is the NFL on Amazon.
Yeah.
The NFL Thursday Night Football package saw a significant decline in viewership. That's on Amazon, which we all have access to on every smart TV.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an Amazon account, and who doesn't? You have access to it. How many people are going to be like, yeah, let me download that Apple TV thing. It's a comfortability assimilation thing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's not... If you said, hey, the game's on ESPN, my wife knows how to turn on ESPN, and she's not really that much of a sports fan.
Yeah.
My wife knows where to find the NFL Sunday Ticket. My wife now, I would guess, because I watch so much basketball, my wife knows how to find the NBA League Pass. My wife, I don't know. She could, because she's really tech savvy. I don't know that she knows exactly where to go to find Apple TV. I don't think she knows where exactly to go.
Let me put it this way. You think the average consumer, and let's say, because the rumor is, speculation is, this once a week thing that's been kind of going around. Think of it this way. If you had a premier game, like let's say they did a deal with Apple TV for tier 1, but then you had one game a week on Amazon. If you had one game a week on Amazon, is anyone even going to get Apple TV? Because you know what that game of the week on Amazon is going to be? It's going to be the best game the Pac-12 has to offer.
Yep. But see, it's this comment right here. This is what in Sweet Beans TV, we've never met, I don't know you. This is one of the most uninformed, ill-informed comments I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I think ESPN should be worried they just fired 7,000 employees. ESPN has not had a layoff in over, I think, 36 months. ESPN did not have layoffs. Disney had 7,000 layoffs. They didn't fire anybody. They laid people off. Amazon laid off 18,000 or whatever. But the reason that this comment is just not very well informed, Bob Iger, the CEO at Disney, who just came back, streamlined his business departments, right? Like what you're trying to do here is torpedo ESPN to prop up Apple TV. The layoffs at Disney had nothing to do with ESPN. Do you know how I know that? A, I used to work at ESPN. B, I have many friends who work at ESPN. None of them have been impacted. And ESPN is profitable. Bob Iger.
The Bob Iger.
Told his earnings people on his earnings call, ESPN is profitable. They are I believe he referred to ESPN as a bright light in our umbrella. So this idiocy that ESPN just fired 7,000 employees.
Yeah.
this idiocy that Fox just put up a huge soccer number with the World Cup. It's the World Cup.
Yeah.
It's always going to get a huge number.
You could put that thing on PBS and it's going to get a huge number.
You don't have to rip people who lost their job, dick, to make your point. And it drives me crazy. And again, I don't know you, man. It drives me crazy that you would say 7,000 people were fired. They were not fired. They were laid off with severance.
Yeah.
So I would watch your tone because you're disrespecting good, hardworking Americans who deserve better than they were just fired because they were not fired.
Yeah.
And I can tell you at Amazon that them laying off people in their device and technology department has nothing to do with Amazon Sports.
Another myth.
The layoffs at Amazon have no impact on the finances, the budgets, and the spending in Amazon Sports. Zero.
You guys understand that there's like different lanes of these companies, right?
This is
ESPN.
Not to interrupt you, this is such an insensitive and foolish comment.
Yeah.
Look, man, again, I don't know what your agenda here is, but this shows you who you are.
Yeah.
This shows you who you are. Ken Williams, I agree with you 100%, Monty. If Utah Brain Trust has not made the call at a Big 12, they need to be fired. Everyone has known this problem. I don't know how they have it.
Yeah, I don't know what Utah is doing, man. And we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah, totally agree. Gary says, playing devil's advocate, Apple knows how to reach an audience. It's Apple. Apple can use their influence to make it work. Out of all the streamers, Apple can make it happen first. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with the concept that from an innovation standpoint, from a getting to the consumer standpoint, you're damn right. Apple knows how to do that, 100%. But I'm going to keep making this point that I've been making for probably 8-9 days now. Apple knows how to make TV shows, not do live sports broadcasts. And that's two very different things.
But I also go back to what Apple's always done is what Apple's probably always going to do. Big corporations don't suddenly start moving very fast.
Mm-hmm.
They slow down. Okay, so you have a company that markets one product. But what change did we see at the Super Bowl with Apple? Anybody remember who sponsored the halftime show? Got to be Apple Music. So where is Apple spending its marketing dollars? Well, it's not on MLS and it's not on Apple TV. So, and I don't disagree with you, Gary. But companies don't all of a sudden just hit the switch.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how much confusion there is on the MLS deal? There are people who think it's free on their T-Mobile phone. It's not free. Just because you have T-Mobile doesn't mean you get free MLS on Apple TV.
Well, and I think that confusion stems from the idea, and we talked about this too. There's 25 million people in this country, approximately, who pay directly, like just straight up from Apple, to get Apple TV and its products.
Yes.
There is another 70 to 80 million people who have access to the basic Apple TV package
Exactly right.
through other things like T-Mobile or
That's
you know
right.
they have other partnerships, but that doesn't mean that you get MLS because MLS is $13, I believe it is, on top of the $7.99 base package, on top of if this were to happen with football, whatever that price would be. So while it is still extremely budget friendly, I don't disagree with that. It is extremely budget friendly. You're still paying for those extra things. So for me, as someone who admittedly, obviously is a sports fanatic, works in sports every day, like we do a show, a little bit different than your average Joe. We have to be more informed than you guys, right? Because we got to talk about this stuff. Apple TV is never going to get my business straight up. If the Jazz were to go to Apple TV exclusively, then I probably wouldn't have much of a choice, right? But I can tell you this, if Utah's playing on Apple TV, I'm not finding it. I know how to talk about a game without seeing the game.
I already don't have Pac-12 networks.
Perfect example.
I'm a DirecTV customer.
Perfect example.
But the other question that you have to ask here is, and I know we talked about this earlier, as we talk about the breaking news, Ray Anderson, the athletic director at Arizona State, said in a radio interview today that the new media deal, quote, may not be the projections originally contemplated, but will be a solid enough financial situation to keep this conference together. If you are, and since it's Arizona State, if you're a bar on Mill Avenue in Tempe, and Arizona State are playing a football game in Tucson, the Territorial Cup, as they call it, are you going to have Apple TV on in your bar? You might. But if you are Jimmy's Bar and Tap Room in Spokane, Washington, are you going to have Pac-12 football on in your bar? Not if it's on Apple TV or not.
Yeah.
How many commercial customers are going to have the know-how or the ability to put Apple TV on their screens?
You know another thing I just thought of? If you're on Apple TV, where are you going to be spending your commercial dollars? You tell me, if you're on Apple TV, you're going to promote your game on the news, let's say, on DirecTV or whatever?
I'll be interested to see how Apple promotes it. Because, I mean, I would think that Apple can send a notification to every iPhone.
Yeah.
But does that mean you can say, hey, there's a close, like, you know how ESPN will send a notice to your phone?
Yeah, through the app.
Close game, you know, Jazz and Knicks are playing a close game.
Yeah.
Tune in now in the ESPN app.
Look at what all that they've done with the UFC stuff. You always get a UFC notification when there's a big card tomorrow. Like, you always get that. Like, you know that. So
how does Apple TV do that?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Because if you're not, like, because again, I remember when you brought up that Apple TV is baked in every iPhone, which makes perfect sense. I looked up Apple TV. You know how you can just search on your iPhone Apple TV, like if you're looking for an app? I deleted the Apple TV app when I got this phone because I don't use Apple TV.
Yeah.
So it pops right up, but it's not even on my phone.
You have to download it.
So if it's not on my phone, how are you sending the notification out?
I don't know. This feels weak.
And by the way, we should say, because I know we get a lot of people coming and going, a lot of people maybe just showed up or whatever. You know, it's not confirmed that it's Apple TV. We're speculating
we're just,
on Apple
based
TV.
on some comments, we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Here on the Monty Show, presented by the Advocates, your best injury attorneys in the business. Without a doubt, the Advocates at theadvocates.com.
We got stuck in traffic at a construction zone, and I got rear-ended at 80 miles an hour. So I needed help. They just stepped in and pretty much took care of everything. If you're in a motor vehicle accident or situation, call the Advocates.
That's right. If you're in Utah, UtahAdvocates.com. Anywhere else, theadvocates.com. The best injury attorneys in the business. Let's run through some comments here. Today is just taking off.
Yeah, crazy day.
Man.
Where are we at
crazy
on likes?
day.
Where are we at on likes? How we looking on the, you know?
We're over 3,000 views. We only have 158 likes, so if all 253 of you watching the program could give us a thumbs up, that'd be great. John Famlore says, I'm not sold on 24-team SEC or Big Ten conference, even after the ACC grant of right expires. Can you imagine the SEC telling South Carolina that they are stuck playing former ACC teams?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? The regional biases that play into these conference expansion and college football realignment conversations. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
It is really, really interesting to me.
I think it's kind of funny with how this is playing out, like this whole conversation about, you know, these schools going out on their own and getting TV deals done. Not that they'd be independent from a conference standpoint, but just independently selling their own distribution deals. That does go against the grain of the super conference concept.
Yes, it does.
And I've been a big believer in the concept that 20, maybe 30 years from now, we will have super conferences. I absolutely believe in that, but I also believe that change happens quickly. And when you have three power players in a conference that, in my opinion, is dying on the vine, we are watching the slow bleed out of the Pac-12.
Yep, no doubt. No.
When that happens, you put people in a position to go out and do things. It's like what Bunny Washington says on Mayor of Kingstown, if you're watching that show.
Bunny Washington.
We got to do things the way we do them now. And that means that we got to go out and get our own TV deals, and we got to go out and find our own way. And to me, I wouldn't blame Ray Anderson or any president in the Pac-12 for going out and doing their own thing. I mean, you got to survive. The TV money, just so we're clear, TV money is, you know, like feeds you. It is what keeps you going. You got to have it.
It creates other opportunities for you to make money.
Yes.
That's what it does. And I
Yes.
know that people like to get crazy about it, and I know that people want to have biases about it. But But the bottom line is your TV deal creates other streams of opportunity for you. Just like becoming a member of the program. Just put the link in the chat. Join our program. You get access to our exclusive members-only chat on Instagram, where you get all of our breaking news. All of our inside sourcing information goes to our our Instagram members first before we tweet it, before we talk about it on the show. All of our members know. And by the way, you get entry into our Big 5-0 birthday bash with Max Tooley from BYU and Brant Keithy from Utah, as well as you get a chance to see the Stanley Cup on March 11th. All you have to do is click the link, join the show, $9.99 a month. You can cancel anytime. Appreciate your consideration.